Main event: Covington versus Masvidal. The friendship torn asunder. The
Dun dun dun.
the training partners no longer training partners. You know, here I'll give my opinion on it in a second. What was your feeling of the lead up to this fight?
It's hard for me with Kobe stuff because, like, I don't know. I don't get drawn into the facade, and especially because it's too like,
Fake.
yeah, like it's too WWE, and like, and it's interesting because like Masvidal, sometimes it's like, no, I can actually buy that this person doesn't like the other person, and I don't know how much of that is him actually not liking Kobe or him not liking the game that he has to play with him. Of he knows how hard Kobe's going to talk trash, so he has to bring it like, it's just the fakeness, but also sometimes not fakeness and how it mixes in. It's like it's a weird mix when you got someone who is legitimately, you know, tough, grew up on the streets. When they talk trash, it's real versus someone putting on a show. Like mixing those two things together is always kind of weird for me.
Yeah, I've spoken on this before. I feel like Jorge Masvidal is not someone I would. I mean, I'm sure he's a pleasant guy, most of the time, and I'm sure he has a lot of very close friends and family and whatever. It's just one of those people who seems to take himself very seriously and can't really take a joke and or play
He doesn't want to play
games.
that game. Like he
Yeah,
just
like that's what. Yeah, so like he doesn't want to play that game, and that's fine. He's a genuine person, and I said this before. I appreciate his genuine nature and him like portraying himself in an honest way. That being said, I don't think I would want to ever hang out with a guy. Like, not that I have to do that. It's just,
I don't know. I bet he'd be a great time at a barbecue.
yeah, until you say something about his shoes and then he
Why
wants
would
to
you say
punch.
something about his
Right,
shoes? What?
that's what I'm saying. So now I got to censor myself around this guy. And
You say things about other people's shoes a lot. What are we doing here?
sure. Yes, absolutely. If you wear a pair of goofy sneakers, I'm going to say something. Or like you wear a pair of New Balance and you're at my grill, I'm like, hey, you belong here. Look at those shoes. What are you saying, man? You saying I can't wear it? I'm like, all right, you know what? Forget everything I just said. I'll just go stand somewhere else. It's just, I don't, listen, this is beyond the point.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he's a bad person necessarily, right? This whole play up of Kobe going after him and saying like, oh, he's been to jail and this and that. I'm sure he's had dust ups in the past, and he's coming from an impoverished neighborhood. Coming from the old school fight leagues where he was fighting for the one that Dada 5000 was running. He was running with Kimbo Slice. Not the greatest place to grow up. It's just that is what it is. This lead up made me kind of sick. Like I find I never liked Kobe's bullshit. I don't like his fake shtick. I don't like any of that stuff. And this lead up, because it was genuine from both sides, it made me feel gross. It's almost like watching family members fight at a gathering, but not your family, right? Like another family comes.
That is that is the most awkward thing in the world when you're watching like a clear like family spat and you have no relation whatsoever and you're just like, it's time for me to leave.
Right, but you can't because they're in your house. Like, so that's what I felt like leading up to this. These guys are discussing things that are very personal to them, and they're honest stories or not, or they're played up or not. It doesn't matter. They genuinely don't like each other anymore, and I'm sure they've had some spats in the past and whatever. It just feels like family members who, are fighting each other because of personal shit, and then now that's just aired out in the public. I mean, I don't need a lead up to these fights. Like, I don't need that. I'm gonna watch them regardless. So maybe it worked. We'll see about the pay-per-view numbers. I'm highly suspicious of that. We'll see. Uh, all of the lead up to this fight, Kobe said afterwards, this was one of his worst performances, and he let the emotions get the best of him. And then Masvidal comes out and says, I was flat, and I just didn't get the wrestling going. Obviously, we didn't even say who won. Kobe won by decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Surprising nobody.
We'll break it down round by round, but what were your thoughts on the fight as a whole?
Uh, I mean, I kind of felt like they both were honest in their assessment of it. Like, it didn't feel like the best performance from either of them, but it pretty much happened exactly as I would expect it to happen. Kobe using his cardio and wrestling to dominate the fight and getting a clear decision without it being too exciting. the exception of like a couple spats of flurries or like, you know, some exchanges here and there. For the most part, it was how's Kobe's wrestling and cardio going to match up with Masvidal's ability to evade that or shut it down enough to where he makes a stand-up game, which he wasn't able to. So, yeah, it was not the most exciting fight, but it, you know, maybe not even their best performance, but it was still a good showing. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
like, so right now I just pulled up the stats from the fight. So, significant strikes totals, like Covington threw 201 to Masvidal's 140, with the landing 94 to
jeez,
67 in favor of Covington.
it's
So,
like heavyweight numbers.
wait, what? That's significant strikes, not totals.
Oh, sorry, I thought
Total strikes, 218 to 90 in favor of Covington. That's total landed. Total thrown was 338 to 166. So here's to those people out there. I've seen some people on Twitter complaining, like, oh, I just saw one guy say like, oh, one guy went out there to fight, one guy went out there to hug the other dude. Can we please stop that shit? Like, you got to stop with that attitude. It does not. This is not how that works anymore. You know, like maybe you could have played that off as something that people thought was cool back in like 2008. It's if you can't wrestle and you get out wrestled, that's you just lose the fight, right? That is a fight.
it's a sport.
It's
It's a strategy.
yeah,
It works
and
really
then
well if you can deliver.
you know Masvidal talking shit after the fight, dude. You had 25 minutes, man. You just were in there for 25 minutes. What is another 5 minutes going to do? How long do we have to do this until you catch a shot and then get like not lucky, but you
had
do
the
something?
opportunity to clearly win exchanges that, you know, there were exchanges that he didn't win. So
Yeah.
it's not like he was dominating the stand-up when there was stand-up.
So the first round was a little not lackluster. That's not the way I would put it, but the striking numbers were in favor of Kobe 7-6, right? Because George came out and threw that stupid karate bullshit, like that flying scissor kick thing. I don't know what the fuck that was. That was so dumb. Anyway,
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Jorge was landing some good leg kicks and wobbled Kobe a bit early on, and then Kobe was in on the waist and grapple heavy and got his first takedown at 310. Back up and down multiple times until like the 30-second mark. When they finally got up, Colby did a little bit of damage, but standard Colby Covington damage, right? He was doing not pity patch. Yeah, I wouldn't say pity pat, but they were constant tapping during that control time. So I gave him that first round. You know, like there were some good shots while Colby was standing up, but you know, more of the damage from that was just because he was on top in control and landing overall damage. 10-9, easy Colby. Second round, you know, Jorge was kicking at the legs, trying to take out the movement and the pressure, and then there was a nut shot by Colby Covington, so that was fun. And then Colby fell down, or he fell from a kick, right? This sequence was very interesting. So he fell from a kick, and like a miss and a slip, and then he ended up on the ground. Jorge made the mistake of engaging Colby and pushing onto him and trying to get on top. And
don't do that.
Colby just on all fours with, you know, Jorge, you know, they're in the not the north-south position, but they're head-to-head, and Colby on all fours just drove forward, drove him to the fence, grabbed a leg, and got on top, right? So in the second round, this is the one where there were some big shots from both guys, and there was, you know, more control time from Colby, but I actually gave the second round to Masvidal. And
I think one of the judges did too.
And if you look right here on this, if you look at the numbers here, my assessment seems to be in like the correct one, 31-20 for Jorge Masvidal, and he was landing as significant, if not more significant, strikes. Third round, Colby Covington, total domination.
Yep. And I saw some people complaining about half-ass submission attempts.
They're not submission attempts.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it's not that it's a submission attempt. It's essentially keeping yourself engaged in the fight and working. I mean, it's working the system.
Right. So the third round was, you know, when he's on top like that, when he's not under the chin, but, you know, just doing neck cranks left and right, I don't even think it's working the system. It's exhausting. It's
Oh yeah.
also, it's a way to wear on your opponent. It's cross facing.
Yes.
It's making them work, making them worried about the choke, putting pressure on the neck. It's not comfortable, not allowing them to breathe properly. That's like saying jabs to the body aren't effective. Like, as
Oh no.
damage
Yeah.
doers, no, they're not. But as making them not be able to breathe normally and wearing on their cardio, I'd say they're very effective. So it's one of those things where it's just an effective grappling technique that he's using, that doesn't lose him position.
I would say equivalent to a strike versus a significant strike. So,
Sure,
ground activity versus significant ground activity.
that's a good way to put it. I would say
Yeah.
it's good ground activity. It's just keeping the fight going. He's not working for a finish in that position. Like, he's not looking for a submission to finish the fight, but he's looking to stay in a dominant position. Dude, he's just the fact that people just they just find a way to shit on him because they don't like the way he does stuff outside
Oh
the
yeah.
octagon, which is I'm not a fan of it either, guys. Like, I don't like the guy. I don't like his shit. I don't like this stuff. I don't like this played up for TV nonsense. It makes me feel gross watching this, and I'm watching like the before and the after, and he's calling out Dustin Poirier and making fun of his wife and his kid. Like, dude,
Yeah.
dude, I don't like the guy. I'm not rooting for him to win necessarily. I'm not rooting for him to lose. It's just when he's in there fighting, it's incredible what he's able to do to these other guys. You know how hard it is to hold Masvidal down. Like, even Kamaru Usman had problems doing that.
Masvidal is not bad at wrestling
No,
in
he's
any
good.
form or fashion. They just always considered one of his strongest tool sets, along with his striking, was his wrestling.
Yeah, and that the third round with the domination from Covington up until the point where Jorge clipped him with I think it was a right hand, and he dropped to a knee. Colby dropped to a knee and then hopped right back up. Like, he did damage, and he did, you can call that a knockdown if you want. But the overall damage I still gave to Colby. And then the last two rounds was more of the same. And we can look at the striking numbers here again. 33-21 in the fourth round, and then the fifth round 13-1 in favor of Colby Covington. Just the amount of control time, 16 minutes out of the 25 minutes was control time. Colby Covington just dominating, pretty much start to finish when it came to like grappling and control of the fight, where he was dictating where it took place. And yes, maybe he didn't land the biggest punch, but he was also, dude, total striking numbers. He landed more strikes too, and standing striking numbers. He was keeping up with Masvidal on the feet. Like, he landed some big shots.
Plus control of the fight, takedowns, damage on the ground. I don't think there's not any doubt that he won the fight, is there? Like, I don't even think I saw that.
No,
like,
no.
There might be some people upset with the way he won it, but I mean, yeah, it was.
No, there's people saying that like, specifically, they're saying that he didn't come out there to fight. He came out there to, like, hug on him or whatever. But even if you have that opinion, and I'll consider that opinion valid, it's still wrong because he outlanded him in strikes.
But it's also like, it's not a fight. Like,
It is a fight.
but like a fight is a fight. It's still a sport.
Well, yeah, there's rules, but
exactly. There's rules. There's point systems. There's ways to win. Like, it is fighting, but ultimately there's strategy to it because of the way the rules are set up and the different strategies that are effective. And he just has a very effective strategy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, like that. That's still a way to fight if you want to quantify it that way. And guess what? In a real world fight, his strategy is also probably super effective.
Yeah, it was super effective.
One-on-one, taking someone to the ground, holding them on the ground, and not letting them do what they want. Also a very effective fight strategy.
Yeah, and guess what? In a real fight, I hate that word. It's so stupid. I don't like talking about it every time, but, like, we can talk about it specifically right now. In a real world fight, or like real fighting, guess what? There's also no rules for you. So when I'm sitting on top of you, I can knee you in the head, or I could just sit there literally forever and make you tired until you can't do anything, because no ref is going to stand us up for lack of activity. Yep. No one's going to stop me from gouging your eyes out on top. No one's going to stop me from throwing knees to your head on the ground. No one's going to that pendulum swings both ways, right? You don't get to pick and choose, like, oh, well, in a real world fight, you wouldn't be able to just hold them down. Why not? He just did it for 25 fucking minutes.
To someone with incredible cardio. Like,
Great cardio, great takedown
yeah,
defense, been fighting since he was a child,
yes. Someone
and
who can fight.
they train
So,
together. He
like,
knows the game.
yeah. He knew what to prepare for. If you don't know what to prepare for with Kobe Covington, I don't know what universe you're living on. He's not going to come in there and he's not going to come in there like John Jones and throw a strike you've never seen before. You know his game plan, and he's going to do it so good that you can't even beat it unless you're Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, and even Kamaru, there is, that last fight with Kamaru Usman was razor thin. It was very close. The first one was close up until, they called it. It's just that second fight with Kamaru Usman, I think, solidified in my mind how close they are as competitors, because there's ways to score it. I didn't score it for Covington, but there were people scoring it who I respect their opinions, and they were calling out that, there's a way that, you call this for Covington based off of these rounds. I could go back and look at my notes, but we're not doing that right now. But anyway, dominant performance by Colby Covington, and then he proceeds to call out Dustin Poirier. I think the reason for that is that he wants the Usman fight, and we know that Burns fighting Khamzat Chimaev. I'll pull up the rankings for you folks. Burns is fighting Chimaev. Leon Edwards is supposed to fight for the title next. They're supposed
Finally.
they're supposed to be setting that up, but Usman has a injury that he's working through right now, so that extends that timeline. So, who's Covington gonna face? We were looking at the rankings here. Like, you got Covington 1, Burns is locked up, Edwards locked up at 3. You got 4, Vicente Luque. What's the point of going down there and fighting him? Like, he's not. I mean, actually, that might be a fine fight. Bilal Muhammad could make sense. But then he just beat Jorge Masvidal, who's ranked 6. Thompson, that's not happening. Thompson's not challenging for the title anytime soon, so why should he be fighting the number 1 contender? Neil Magny's not up there, and Sean Brady's just coming up. And then now we're too far gone. Like, this ain't happening. Like, there's a lot of variables in here as far as the top 5 go. And I don't think that Covington fighting any of them makes sense for him if his ultimate goal is just to fight Usman next. So when he calls out Dustin Poirier, I think that's a
cash grab.
It's fine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just,
I think of the people not named Kamaru Usman in the realm of who he could fight, I feel like short of him calling out Conor, like, Poirier is probably the most reasonable fight that is going to get him the largest pay-per-view.
and because Poirier has been not necessarily talking shit, but basically saying, like, anytime, anywhere type of stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, he officially is called out. So there you go. What is it? I mean, we kind of just talked about what that means for the division, but I mean, what do you think Covington versus Usman ever happens again?
Yes.
You do.
Yep.
Do you think it's for the title?
Yes.
Ooh. I would say, if I was leaning towards it happens again, I would say that it doesn't happen for a title, and it's because Usman lost his title, and there's a situation where they're fighting for the number 1 contender spot or a title shot or something like that. But I mean, I could also see, Covington fighting Usman a third time. It's just, with so many challengers and so many fresh matchups now, I think that there's a good way. I mean, there's a lot of these fighters who, a year from now are going to be in the title picture. Like, if you look all the way down at number 15, Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's undefeated. He has nothing but finishes, and he's impressive with the way we're talking highlight reel finishes every single time.
Oh.
So,
and you still have Gilbert Burns in the mix. You still have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff here, because Gilbert Burns rocked Usman, and barring the stupid falling down and getting kicked in the butt for 45 seconds, maybe he finishes that fight and gets the title.
And I mean, like, even though he just lost, you still have Stephen Thompson in the mix. Like he could win his next 3 fights and be right back up there.
I'm over that one now, and
Oh yeah,
not that listen. I am one of the biggest Stephen Thompson fans because I love his style. I love who he is as a person, what he does for like everything about him and his career and all that stuff. I love all of it. While Usman is still champion, or Burns is still champion, or in that title picture, I kind of don't want to see him fight for a title because we know how it's going to go. You know,
yeah.
he's going to get taken down, and that's going to be the whole fight. Nobody can keep up with him on the feet, or very few people can keep up with him on the feet.
No one wants to try him on the feet.
Yeah.
Let's just be straight with that.
Yeah, so I'm just, we've seen him get out-wrestled over and over again. I'm okay with him, calling it quits as far as, like, title runs. Because even, like, Bilal Muhammad was able to out-wrestle him. So, let's not – I wouldn't throw him in there as of right now. All right. I mean, like I said, Covington, it's hard for me to follow his story and root for him because I think he's kind of gone not over the line as far as saying stuff because I don't think there is a line you can cross. Like, that's not what I mean.
I don't think it's the content. I think it's the corniness. I think it was interesting for a minute, but I almost think the sport has kind of passed up that type of showmanship. I think it got old and it stopped being interesting and original, and now it's just kind of, we get it.
The thing
like
is,
it had shock value, but the shock value is waned to the point where it's just not as interesting.
Yeah, and you keep having to. The problem with this kind of marketing strategy, because that's what he's doing. He's marketing himself. Yeah. Is if your whole thing is I'm gonna be the shock and awe guy, I'm gonna be the one who says outlandish shit.
I mean, it's Jackass 3. Well, what are you going to do to up the next stunt?
That's what I'm saying. It's like eventually you're to the point where, like, as far as Jackass goes, like, are we just going to kill a guy? Like, is that what we do next? Let's try to dodge bullets. Like, for him now, he's like he has talked about people's families in the past, but mentioning people's kids and saying, like, dude, like I said, I don't think there's a line. I think you say what you want to say, and people can choose whether or not to like you for saying that thing. I'm completely fine with that. But this stuff makes me like, I hate watching it now.
See, I disagree with that. I do think there is a line, but I don't necessarily think it's a line in terms of like, oh, you're not allowed to fight anymore because you say that. I think it's a line about what draws people. After a certain point, you have crossed the marketing line of what you're saying or what you're doing to where it has a negative impact.
How do you know when it crosses the line?
I mean, ultimately, how's his draw been? Like, I haven't really done a deep dive into the numbers he's bringing in, but
it's hard to tell because he's usually not the marquee, and when he is, there's usually other stuff on the card.
Yeah,
and
I guess you could look at like social media interest, or like, I would say even of the talk he's doing right now, there was a time where you heard about him outside the UFC, where like there was casual fans or people that weren't fans really talking about him as a person. I didn't see any of that prior to this fight.
No.
I'm not seeing any coverage outside of like UFC, like
MMA
news.
Media.
Yeah. And outside of MMA media for things he said about Dustin Poirier's kids or wife, like that's not breaking through the zeitgeist. So obviously, there's a staleness to it, or there's a line to it that he's, even if he didn't cross it, what he is doing, what he was doing before, is no longer effective.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I'm burnt out on it. I hate following him. I hate, I enjoy watching him fight because I think what he does is very impressive. But, unlike certain people that we'll talk about him later on this card, Kevin Holland, who talks nonstop, even in fights, dude, he just nonstop talks. It's fun to listen to him talk because he's a fun guy. He's talking like, it's fun to listen to him. Even when he talks shit, he's still fun. It makes it interesting. It makes him.
Well, it's natural versus forced.
Yeah,
like that.
All right, I think we're good on this one. I don't want. It's making me like all this stuff is just making me mad.
It's not fun to talk about because it's just draining.
I can't stand him anymore. Not that I ever could. It's just gross.